IitzTimmy is one of the first names mentioned when discussing Apex Legends streamers, and how couldn't he be? His movement, in particular Pathfinder plays, aim, his game sense, along with several in-game achievements, such as being the first to soloq the Predator, makes him one of the most notable content creators in the Apex space. But how does he do it? Let's check out 5 things that IitzTimmy does that you don't. Before we get started, I just want to add that previously to this video, we made one of these for ACU, and there is a stark difference between these two in playstyle. Once you really dive into it, it's almost night and day. Let's start this off with what initially ended up making this video a little bit more difficult to create than other analysis videos. Timmy has seemingly 2 playstyles, and it took a while for me to realize, what prompts each style. There is the safe Timmy and there is a confident Timmy. The safe Timmy, as the name suggests, wants to play safe. He sticks close to cover and clears the view in front of him before moving up, revealing only parts of himself as to not take too much damage from the enemy team, while at the same time being prepared for the enemy's push so he can deal game-changing damage and allow his team and himself to win the fight. This style of play is slower and more calculated than the confident Timmy. On the flip side, the confident Timmy is the polar opposite, moving around with no regards for its safety, wide swinging and not paying much attention to the cover around him, while hard focusing the enemies in front of him. Confident Timmy oftentimes jumps forward and takes ego challenges to force 1v1s, which he usually wins. The carefree style usually catches the enemy team off guard and allows him to deal significant damage despite risking a lot to himself. The 2 Timmys can switch up on a dime, and it is an adaptation to both his enemies, his teammates, and the overall lobby at the same time. Experienced players can tell what type of enemies that they are facing, and they know what to expect from the players in one lobby. And if players like Timmy get a feeling that they don't need to respect their enemies, they turn on the confident, aggressive card and push their advantage. If the enemies lay down good damage or show signs of good movement, game sense or positioning, or just play overall very tightly together, Timmy instead slows the game down and tries to force them to make a mistake before switching back to the aggressive Timmy to clean it up. This applies even more so when he's playing ranked, as we have seen time and time again when he soloq the Predator. Let me also just slow the video down for a second and ask you to hit the like button. It helps a lot. Thank you. Instead of structuring up entire fights around a special area where he can cheese enemies to make mistakes through something like zipline dancing, Timmy relies on his mechanical skill to win most engagements. This includes a combination of his top tier aiming skills to deal more damage than the enemies, along with movement and techniques such as tap strafing and wall bounces to make sure that it also takes as little damage as possible. Something that stood out to me on a microscopic level is that Timmy, unlike most players that I've seen, seems to have a crouch-based dodging pattern, meaning that he not only uses crouches a lot when taking duels, but he seems to use his crouch to throw off the enemy's aim more often than strafing. In some cases, he only crouches, and it's just enough to confuse the enemy and allow him to win the fight. He also uses hipfire a lot, especially when getting really close to his enemies or when he knows that he has enough damage to finish them off with a few bullets. This goes hand in hand with minimizing the amount of damage he takes himself, and probably comes from him maining Pathfinder for so long, since as most of you all probably know, Pathfinder is a huge bullet sponge compared to other pub stomper legends such as Wraith, and struggles a lot with his 1v1s. It's possible that this also is a reason for the crouch-centric movement pattern, since a tall legend like Pathfinder becomes relatively small when crouched down. One of the main reasons the confident Timmy style works, other than him simply being mechanically better, is the element of surprise and the dynamics of confidence. A player who isn't as good usually isn't as confident, and if pushed hard enough, will panic. A confident push on an unconfident player will make them miss shots that they otherwise wouldn't, and make them almost look like bots. This one is very easy to learn from, just fake it until you make it, and you too will start winning fights where everything is lost. There's also another factor that nobody ever talks about, which is that reactions are always worse than actions. You always want to be the one to make the first move because a reactionary move will always be sloppier than the planned one. Good players notice and always push their opponents, especially when they can sense a weakness. But this can also be flipped the other way, where an enemy team will be confident if they get a knock or a lot of damage on you and a teammate, and push up full and bolstered with confidence. If you can keep your composure, you will not only punish them, but hopefully knock the wind out of them and turn the fight on its head. Timmy wants to do a lot of damage. It makes some sense from a gameplay perspective to deal as much damage as possible without overextending and taking damage yourself, to make it easier for your team and yourself to clean up the fight and maybe even switch to the confident Timmy for the finish. But it seems like when he has a choice, as opposed to most pub stompers that I've analyzed, Timmy chooses to go for the play that nets him more damage on his enemies rather than the one that lets him close out the fight fast or at least secure an early knock. I dare to say that his priority is just doing the most damage possible at all times. And why wouldn't he? People like seeing high damage games, and it's his high damage games that are popping off on YouTube. Doing a lot of damage in a fight is good either way, but I'd be lying if I didn't noticing you finishing enemies on the floor instead of shooting an enemy to get that free extra damage. It's okay though, I do it too. When playing public matches for content, Timmy is used to the ideal playstyle for farming either high damage games or high kill games, where he drops hot, meaning where most squads are dropping, cleaning up until there's no more action, and then rotating. Where does he rotate to? This small snippet from this video gives us some insight into how he thinks. Timmy wants to make sure that the game's constantly filled with action, to entertain his viewers, himself, and of course farming high damage and high kill games, and in order to do so he tries to follow the dropship's path in the early to mid game, since this will find him the most kills possible. If you're looking for a 20 bomb or a 4000 damage game, adapting this tiny rotational advice will take you a long way. You can also take this to the next level and make a mental note where enemies are landing as you are in the dropship or you are descending, and sort of structure a rotational plan for when you finally get out of the hot drop. So to close this video out, I figured that we're going to be analyzing just a little snippet of Timmy's 9000 damage game. Yeah, by the way, otter.store. Go check it out. But yeah, he's gonna go straight into it. Alright, so he grabs the gun real quick, he sees the crypto, and small thing he does right here, he backs off, not to expose himself to the guy on the right that he saw before. Because he knows it's a free-for-all, he doesn't want to overcommit. Now the double peek, now this is very ego. But he knows his teammate is next to him, so he went for that. Now he rotates around, he wants to get the hot swap, and then come at them from like an off angle. He's trying to reset a little bit.
4, 3, 2, 1.
It's pretty good shots. Oh, I had a Rage Shell in the stream, it's cool for him. Yeah, so then he just gets like the finisher for the damage. Again, he doesn't loot them, he just finishes them for the damage, and I guess again reset the fight a little bit. Then he goes for the fight. Does he finish the Gibraltar? Probably not, because of 1v1. He has to 1v1 with Bangalore, and he's doing a good job playing the bubble there. Not really exposing himself too much. The fight is drawing out, but oh, he has nothing. Need to loot the guy, need to loot the first guy. There you go. There you go. Alright, so he peeks here, wide swing, confident Timmy is having a time of his life, moving up a little bit, once again confident because he sees the runaway, he's got good damage, he's got to push the advantage, so he's moving up, tickling the Pathfinder, puts the ultimate down because it will break the door, he doesn't know, he likes to kill information, doesn't get the kill, and now he wants to get the finish, there it is. Alright, arcs are coming in, he's pretty exposed, he's probably going to Q forward here, yep. He doesn't want to take the high ground, interesting choice, instead he goes around the left side, wraps, there comes the, oh, okay, no, takes a 1v1. A lot of movement there, he's going for the mechanical, the hip fire spray, because it was very close. He keeps the Spitfire, back then the Spitfire was very good, it's still pretty solid, but for a while it was very oppressive. It's very good for farming damage, because you could poke a lot. And now he's out of early game, but I think that's enough. Just a very short snippet, kind of showcasing the few things we mentioned in the video. I'm sure there's some stuff I missed, but yeah. At the start of the video, I actually mentioned that we did one of these videos for ACU as well. If you want to watch that, I have linked on the screen right here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all tomorrow.